The Chiefs' regular season roster has begun to take shape with a few maneuvers already. Today, we run down our 53-man projection as well as a little bit of detail on some of the things that have already happened today on Locked On Chiefs.
From the land of the free and the home of the Chiefs, this is the Locked On Chiefs podcast.
Welcome back, everybody. We're on the cusp of the regular season. We're talking the 53-man roster today, our projections, what they've done, etc. Brought to you by BriteCo. And they are the jewelry and watch insurance company that you want to check out. They're comprehensive, they're fast, they're affordable, and they can really help you. All you got to do is go to Brite.co/locked on. Yeah, it's a little bit different. We're going to tell you more about them coming up. But there's a lot here. And it's getting close. It's an interesting process this year. It's a little bit different than years before. We're going to go through it in depth. I'm Ryan Tracy, the founder of Rogue Analytics and Performance Consulting, NFL33.com, and RGRFootball.com.
Yeah, he's just all over the place is basically what it comes down to. And I'm Chris Clark. You can find me over at Chiefs Corner, and we're actually going to be talking exactly what I wrote about yesterday in the 53-man roster. Oh, look at him just going all nice and flipping it over, and
there's a shine off the forehead. If y'all are on YouTube, I apologize. As I get older, the hairline is receding.
But thank you for making Locked On Chiefs your first listen. We do appreciate that. You can find us on all the streaming platforms or all the streaming services, and you may want to check out another Locked On show, maybe Locked On NFL. Or Locked On NFL Draft. There might be somebody that you know on that one.
That one. There's a lot. This is the whole network thing. It is your team every day for free, no matter what you're doing. And even if it's not football, which I don't understand, but that's fine. No, I listen to the Abs ones. I listen to some of the college shows. Like, there's plenty. You can find something that you dig. What I dig is the Chiefs went out of their way to make a couple of moves early in the weekend so that they could get some things squared away. And clearly, I think despite what we saw in OTAs, one guy that got a lot of reps with the one while Orlando Brown was out has already been cut. That does not tell me that I don't think Ronald Jones is even practice squad eligible, but it tells me that there's a very distinct line between who they're keeping and who they're not.
Yeah, and he is actually practice squad eligible just this year because of the new practice squad rules. They could still keep him if they wanted to on the practice squad. I don't think they will be bringing him back based on the fact that they released him when they did. But all veterans are actually still practice squad eligible. So if they wanted to go out and get a guy like Matt Moore again, they technically could. They have a couple of roster spots that they could do that with practice squad. But what I will say about this is I'm kind of surprised they made these moves now. But before we get into the rest of those moves, I do want to say this. Field Yates tweeted something out, and this is important because I wasn't 100% sure. If you cut these guys, even from starting on Friday, if you started to cut on Friday, they are not eligible to be picked up on the waiver wire until Wednesday.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a key. So any of these guys that are released can't be signed until Wednesday or can't be picked up until Wednesday. Can't be claimed.
And I like that adjustment. It is part of the new rules and the new CBA, the new process of getting down to the 53 plus the 16-man practice squad. That gap and having the longer time between the end of the preseason games and the actual date, I like that because I think it allows you a little bit more time to review the third preseason game to get your evaluation a little bit more locked down. Although the Chiefs made a couple of moves that were pretty easy, so unfortunately they already have their evaluations on the five guys they've made moves on already. But I think that lends towards maybe not so much of a rust schism, maybe not so much of a hey, this is all we saw, and a little bit more, I think, cooperation between the front office who's making these cuts and the coaching staff that has to do the evals on them. And sometimes I think some teams get ahead of themselves. Kansas City usually isn't a problem because the front office and that staff are so tight with the coaching staff, but it can lead to some opportunities in some other staffs. And I like that option.
Yeah, and I will say this too. Kansas City's in a unique position because they had one of the last preseason games on Thursday night. Other teams have been playing. Yeah, other teams have still been playing, so they're still going. They haven't obviously made their cuts because they're still playing right now. So that's something to take into account. So Kansas City's got a couple more days of evaluation. And something to watch over the league over the next couple of days is who all is going to be released. Obviously, we will say this really quick. We will be getting into our roster projections here in just a moment. The special teams guys are pretty standard. You got Butker, you got Townsend, and you got Winchester. So there you go. There's the first three.
Yeah, I agree with you. That's very clear to me that there's no question there.
Right.
And these guys are staples of the roster. They go through. So really what it means is just like years past, we have 50 positions that we can work with here in trying to see what we think is going to be the outcome when it comes down to the roster. So with much ado about nothing, one guy that I want to lament, and I hope that will eventually make it back to the practice squad, is Mike Rose, because I don't know why, but I didn't see in training camp from him the smoothness and the opportunistic playmaking ability that I saw in college. So I think there's some adjustment there that's off, but I do think that he still has upside. So I hope he's one guy that makes it back to the squad.
Yeah, and I think that you're probably right there. I think that you look into them releasing him as early as they did, and that means that he obviously didn't really have a chance at even making the 53, which was going to be tough at his position anyway, because I think they only keep 5 linebackers, and we'll get into that in the third segment. I was kind of surprised that he was on the list of guys that got released early. But the rest of them really didn't shock me. I mean, Crum was a guy that I always thought was going to be cut. I never thought he had a chance of making the roster. Tay and Fleet Davis had a good game against the Commanders. But again, running back is so full. And then Aaron Parker never showed anything really that I saw in the preseason games. Maybe he showed a little bit at camp, but
yeah,
those are your guys. And Roger Johnson, obviously, like you said, never really materialized to what we thought he was going to when the pads came on. And that is why it is so key to get to that point and see where people are.
Yeah, that's one of the bigger surprises. But there's a few more surprises to come. We're going to start on offense coming up after this. But I got to tell you about one of our newest sponsors that helps you avoid what are some of the funniest stories that I've ever seen. I know guys that have proposed with like engagement rings and champagne glasses. I've seen dudes do it on horseback, whatever. My cousin actually got proposed to on a sailboat, which all these things are very cool and unique, right? But like if you're getting on a helicopter or getting in a boat or whatever, there's always the chance for hijinks and the possibility that you're going to lose out on that. And if you make a mistake and the ring goes overboard, you're in trouble. I mean, that's not just like, a today mistake. That's a today, tomorrow, the rest of your life mistake. And there's somebody that can help you. So we want to make sure that you guys know about this, and you don't have to be that guy. You can certainly don't want to be it splattered all over the internet too, especially don't have somebody film it when you're doing something crazy like that. But the guys at BriteCo, the jewelry insurance company, will make sure that you have a replacement of the full value of that ring if you so happen to, toss it overboard accidentally, no matter whether it's lost or stolen, or you can't figure out what happened to it, or it got lost in shipping, or it's wherever, whatever, you're on a trip to Czechoslovakia for some reason. Hey, they'll find it, or they'll give you your replacement. All you got to do is go to brite.co/locked on. It's the fastest, easiest, and cheapest way to cover your butt with your best jewelry insurance out there. And that's brite.co/locked on. Okay, offense first, yeah?
Offense will be in just a second after you have our words from our second sponsor.
Oh, see, there's this other thing that you can do. And I forgot that this was in the first break here. So I want to make sure that if you are somebody that needs some help moving around the world, moving around your town, however you want to do it, especially if you are not somebody that wants to put the payments into your own car, Turo is the largest car sharing marketplace out there. With Turo, you can book any car you want, wherever you want, from a community of local hosts. And it's able to just browse through what you have there. It's a huge selection of vehicles for just about any location and any budget across the U.S. They're in Canada and the U.K. as well, so you can do that. For our UK listeners, it's a little bit different, but you will check it out. You can book a spacious minivan or just get your road trip out of the way. You can go luxury. You can probably go something pretty impressive if you're trying to tie in and do that whole engagement thing. That might be a nice way to do it with a fancy car. I don't know. You can test drive a new electric vehicle you have your eye on and see if it's really for your everyday life, that kind of thing. Many Turo hosts can even deliver the car to you where you don't have to find a way to go get it. Every trip is backed by liability insurance. Terms and conditions and exclusions do apply. So ditch the boring rental cars and find your drive at Turo.com. Turo.com. That's where you want to check it out.
Now let's hop into the offense.
Yeah, okay. I couldn't remember which side we're doing first.
Yep, offense, which I'm sure just goes so well with what you want to talk about. Let's get to the obvious ones. QBs, Patrick Mahomes, Chad Henne. I'm sorry, I don't see how Shane Buchelle is going to be on this roster.
Okay, good. We agree. I'm glad for that.
Yeah. I know people are still saying, there's people that are in the comments that are saying Buchelle needs to be the backup. I don't see it. But that's me, and I just don't see him on this roster. If he is on this roster, it's going to create issues elsewhere.
Agreed.
They have depth issues, so they got to get figured out.
Yeah.
Let's come back to running back, because I think that's going to be a little bit more interesting. Let's just jump ahead to tight end.
Okay. I think with the injury to Matt Bushman and the injury to Blake Bell, I think they both end up either on PUP or IR. We're going to have to see. I think they keep 3 in Kels, Fortson, and Gray.
I'm going 4. I think they keep Bell on the active roster, and I guess I want to make this caveat. They're keeping 4. I think they keep Bell on active, and then they cut it, and then they put him on IR on Wednesday. And then he is eligible to come back. I think Bushman's going to be a guy that's going straight to IR. I don't think that there's any
with a
way
clavicle.
that they're right.
Yeah.
Well, I just don't think that they're going to do the same that they would do with Bell. I think he wasn't going to make the roster anyway, so he's going to be somebody that's going to go straight to IR, and they'll have to do an injury settlement later probably.
Yeah, that's a fair point. I could definitely see that happening. So
at that point, you bring back Bell, you cut Bell on Wednesday, or not cut him, but you put him on IR on Wednesday, and you get another open roster spot, which allows you to bring somebody else back.
Okay, so let's run this down. You have 4 on the 53. I have 3 on the 53. We both have the 2 QBs.
Yep.
All right. I'm running the totals here.
That's where we are so far. Wide receivers.
I think you got to keep 6. I think we all know who they are. I think it is Watson and Fountain at the end, and I'm the top 4 that we've been waiting on all season.
Yep. No, I'm with you on that. I don't think that there's any other way although I will say this, like when I started the preseason, I thought Watson wasn't going to be on the roster before the game started. And then you start getting into games and you start talking about what they were doing. It's training camp, and that kind of changed the Watson thing. He was at 6. Now I think he's at 5. I think he moved past Fountain, and I think that if they needed a wide receiver, he'd be the first to go in.
Yeah, I can agree with that. I think he's had the kind of performance you have to have if you want to be a guy that gets in on the offensive side of the ball. So kudos to him. I can't say that I saw it coming, but I'm glad that they have a further option. I think that helps the team overall, and that's really what in the end what we're looking for.
Yep.
Okay.
So at that point, you have what? 11 and I have 12.
Yes, you are correct, sir.
Let's go back to running back.
Oh no, now we're going. Okay.
I mean, it's. I think offensive line is going to be a little tricky too. So
yeah, I agree. So is it 3? Is it 4 on the 53 for you?
Okay, to be clear, I'm keeping 4, but I'm counting Burton in that 4. I'm not going to do fullback as its own separate position. I just count that as running back. So,
okay, that's fine with me. Yeah, let's do that.
So I'm just counting him as in that running back room. But yeah, I think it's CEH, Pacheco, and McKinnon, and then I think that Burton is the 4th guy, and I don't think Jones is on this roster. I don't know if he's cut or traded.
Okay. I tend to agree with you. I think that's perfectly smart. So let's see where we're at. I have 25 on offense, and you, I believe, have 26. Is that correct?
Well, we haven't gotten to offensive linemen yet.
Oh, okay. Sorry. My fault. I got excited there about the O-line. All right, let's do this.
No, I'm sorry. I didn't hear what you said. Did you say you think Jones is gone too?
Yeah, I think it is the 3 tailbacks and Burton. I do think that despite running straight ahead in the last ball game, I think that he's earned a little bit. Maybe it could be a veteran practice squad position. I'm not so sure. I think somebody else might give him a shot, but I don't think he's earned his way onto the 53.
Yeah, I agree with that. And I don't think he's going to be somebody's going to let just sit out there. I think he's going to get either picked up, and it may not be week 1. He may end up being a guy that gets picked up week 2, so it's not guaranteed. We'll have to see, but I don't think he's going to be on the practice squad.
Agreed.
So, all right, offensive line, top 5 are pretty set. I don't think that there's any question there. I think 6 is still Allegretti, and then it gets murky.
Absolutely. And I would have said that you would need 2 tackles in both Jaron Christian and Roderick Johnson. That caught me a little bit by surprise. So I still think that in the end, they probably need to go 10 just to guard against it, especially knowing that I feel that the release of Roderick Johnson means that Darian Kennard makes this roster because they want to protect him for development.
And I would agree with that. I'm going 9 offensive linemen, though. So I think that's where I still stayed at 25. So I think that's where we differed there. For me, I think that number 7 is probably going to be Prince. I think he's their swing tackle right now, at least for now. I'm not saying that he's going to be that guy that's going to be their future guy, but I think for right now, he's that guy.
Okay, so you have Prince. I have Jaron Christian staying. Do you think they both do, or is it one or one?
I have Christian being cut.
Okay. So obviously Allegretti. I think Caliendo and Ryder round it out and get us the next 2 steps. Are we on the same page, or is that too many for you now?
That's too many.
Okay.
I don't think Ryder makes this roster. I think Caliendo has shown that he can play both guard and center, and the Chiefs want guys that can do more. So to me, I think that puts Caliendo ahead. And the other side of it is Kansas City, in my mind, Kansas City could be in a situation where they go and they release Ryder and then they bring him back if they really want him. I mean, that's a possibility because they're going to have that open roster spot from Blake Bell the day after. So who knows where they're going to go in that direction. But I still don't think Christian's on this roster, and I think Ryder is going to be the odd man out because he just plays center.
Yeah, I think that's kind of his downfall as well. I would completely agree with you. All right, so that's where we're at. Halfway through the roster.
And Kennard,
25 and 25. Yeah,
I heard you say that.
I did.
Okay. Well, just wanted to make sure that was clear. We're both saying Kennard probably makes this roster. And I think that's the right move. I think that they need to protect him. They need to make sure that he stays on this roster and they give him the opportunity, because I think that there was enough in college to show that he can be a good player in the NFL. But at this point, he's just not there yet. And they protected LDT for a couple of years, and look what that got them. I mean, he played very well for them for several years. Don't forget what he meant to this team for a long time, and especially during their Super Bowl run. So
I completely agree with you. So that is the offense. We'll get back to the defense here coming up next.
But I want to tell you about our friends over at PrizePicks. You need to go check these guys out. This is the absolute place that you need to be going and looking for your daily fantasy. Are you looking at Patrick Mahomes throwing for 350 yards in a game? Are you looking for, Juju Smith-Schuster to score 2 touchdowns or get 100 yards in the game? What are you expecting Travis Kelce to do? These are all going to be questions that you're going to be asking about your daily fantasy sports and other players all around the league. Derrick Henry, what's he going to run for? Guys like, Justin Jefferson, Jamar Chase, what are they going to catch? What kind of yardage are they going to get? How many TDs are they going to catch? It's all going to be questions that are going to go into your daily fantasy. You need to go check out PrizePicks. Pick 2 to 5 players, and if they will go score more or less than their PrizePicks projection, you can win up to 10 times your money on any entry. No competing against other people. It's just you versus the projections available. PrizePicks offers projections on any sport you watch. This includes NBA, NFL, Major League Baseball, hockey, golf. There you go, Ryan. More golf.
Oh, yeah.
College football, men's college basketball. I know Ryan's really going to be intrigued with that. Women's college basketball, soccer, WNBA, just about any sport you could look for. They have some daily fantasy picks that you can go take a look at. Entries can be made in 60 seconds or less. It's that easy. Safe and fast withdrawals are easy to be had. Download the PrizePicks app or go to prizepicks.com to sign up and play daily fantasy sports. First-time users can receive 100% instant deposit match up to $100 with promo code Locked On. If you deposit $100, PrizePicks will give you $100. If you deposit $50, PrizePicks will give you $50. Don't forget to enter promo code Locked On at sign up for an instant deposit match up to $100.
All right, let's get into the defense, folks. I know there's a lot of question marks. There's a lot of changes here. You want to start at the back or the front, Chris?
Start at the front.
Okay. I have it breaking down this way, and I went back and forth on this a lot. At the end of the day, I only think that there's 5 ends that can make this roster right now, and I think there has to be 5 tackles that make this roster. So I have Dunlap, Karlaftis, Herring, Frank Clark, and Mike Dana at edge. And I have Noddy, Jones, Shelton, Saunders, and Wharton at tackle. That's 5 and 5 for 10 on the defensive line.
I agree. I really went back and forth with whether or not Shelton was going to make this roster in my mind.
Yeah.
I will say this too. If Kansas City decides they want to go higher at offensive line to start, maybe Danny Shelton is the guy that they release and they bring back on Wednesday or Thursday after they put Bell on IR.
Now,
maybe that's another move.
That's an interesting thought, but does this whole rigmarole and the changes in the CBA this year, does that still mean that veterans wouldn't get guaranteed until after week 1's game? And if so,
Yes.
Wouldn't you wait until then?
You could, unless you think that you're going to want him for week 1's game. So That's still an option. I'm not saying it's not. I'm just saying that they're going to have an open roster spot. If they use it or if they don't, I don't know which direction they go. But Shelton's another guy that I think that fits that role of a guy that you can probably release and he's not going to go somewhere else.
Yeah,
that's the way I'm looking at it, because he was eligible to be signed by people for months on end and nobody brought him in. So if Kansas City wants him, that's another guy that you could go and release and say, okay, well, we're going to bring you back. Just know we're going to bring you back. And maybe they sweeten it and they give him a little bit of a signing bonus to come back. I mean, that's always something that can happen in this scenario.
I like it. Okay. So now we move on to linebackers. There are, I think, a number of combinations here. This is one of the more interesting ones, but in the end, I think volume has to be saved for the back of the defense. So I'm only going 5 linebackers. It is Bolton, Gay, Chanel, Lee, and Darius Harris that make this roster for me.
Same here. I would love to argue with you on this, but Carter did nothing. Nothing to differentiate himself. Let's put it that way. I'm not going to say he did nothing, but he did nothing to differentiate himself. Harris made plays in preseason game number 3, and he was a guy that they gave the green dot to. He made plays on special teams. He was a core special teams guy in the preseason. I don't think he's going anywhere. I think he's their core special teams guy.
I agree. And I'd love to see Jermaine Carter be like that veteran practice squad guy they can pull up in case. I know they made the investment in him. I don't think that matters. At the end of the day, this is a team that has to have the roster right. And even though you have some money wrapped up in that, and people are saying that really earned him a roster spot, at the end of the day, I think they're more comfortable with Darius Harris. If there's injury and somebody has to play, you could see Harris and Chanel being the guys that come in as a pair if you're going to be in the nickel. I think Elijah Lee is impressed, and I'm glad that they have him in this role to bring some of the younger guys around. But I think you could afford, with Elijah Lee in place, to have a much younger group, and I think that's what happens without Jermaine Carter. So,
and I think the other reason they signed Carter was thinking that you have more options going into the draft. You didn't have to go after a linebacker. So if Chanel wasn't here, Carter's probably that 5th guy.
Yeah,
but because Chanel is here, he's obviously going to make the roster as the 3rd round pick, and he should.
Yeah, that's exactly how it should work. All right, so that right now, we talked about Mike Rose earlier here, and I think that really goes to show that he and Jack Cochran could be practice squad candidates for this defense. I don't mind that at all.
No, I don't either, and I think that both of them could be practice squad guys. I'm not sure which direction they'll go. The key is, though, like you said, we never really saw from Rose on the field during preseason games what you expected to see based on college film. To Kansas City, you ever see that in OTAs or in training camp or in mini camp or in anything? Did they ever see flashes? Because that's what they're going to decide on when it comes to practice squad guys.
Yeah, I agree. Okay, that moves us to the secondary. Let's start at safety, because I think that's I think pretty clean. Yeah. What do you have?
No, I think it's the same that we've been talking about. I think Bush is the 4th safety. And you have Cook, you have Thornhill, and you have Reed. I mean, I just don't see it going any other way.
Yeah, I can see that too. And kudos to Deion Bush. I didn't expect him to make this, to tell you the truth.
I mean, the one shock that I guess I could see, if they really love Zane Anderson that much, maybe. I didn't see it from him on film.
Yeah. I have Zane to the practice squad, and I am a Zane supporter.
Yeah, me too.
I think that is good for him. That's perfectly fine.
Yep.
Okay, so the interesting corner spots. Fenton, Snead, McDuffie are your starting 3. It's been very clear. I think Brett Veach has made it very clear that when Fenton's back, the coaching staff believes he is one of the top 3. He will be there. I know a lot of folks are excited about the rookies, but having 2 starting rookies, I think, would be maybe a stretch too far. So I do think it is Fenton. That's the top 3. Do you agree with those?
I do. I think that based on what I've seen from Williams, though, he could be a guy that maybe gives fit and run for his money by the end of the season if he can continue to progress. I think he's gotten better each week. Yeah, he's still had – I know people don't like the penalties. I get it. But he's got to learn. And like you said, I mean, it's the level of competition. It was so huge going from where he played to where he is now. The thing is with him, he has size and length that you can't teach. That's a huge differentiating factor in his favor.
Yeah. And continually, like, he mirrors well. He stays in phase. He's able to play the route really well. The only thing he's had trouble with, in my opinion, in the preseason is playing the catch point. And I think that is the level that he's jumping up. When he works on that, I think he's going to be a player that can be on this roster for a very long time. That said, so Josh Williams would be our 4. Yes, agreed. And so he would be our 4. So how do you round out, knowing that we both have 6 spots left? We're going to have 2 additional corners each. Who do you have?
Watson's the easy one.
Yes.
I think we both agree that Jalen Watson's going to be on this roster.
People called me crazy when I said, hey, well, go watch the Wazoo corner in the draft process. He's got a shot. He can play in this league. Folks thought I was nuts. I'm really tickled, honestly, that it ended up being in Kansas City, because I did that obviously pre-draft and all that kind of thing. Like, just to see him progress onto a roster that is really, really young. Because we're talking about Trent McDuffie, Jalen Watson, and Josh Williams. Half of the corner platoon is going to be rookies this season. That's significant. So now we can get in our fist fight. Who you got?
Now, hold on. Before we go there, because I know this is going to be a little bit of an argument. But before we go there, I will say this. Watson to me is their 5th corner. The one caveat I will say is if there is somebody released or they have the ability to make a trade for a guy that's a veteran, that would not shock me, which would probably put Watson as a cut. I would guess.
Practice squad. Yeah.
Yeah. Which sucks. I don't know that he'll make it to the practice squad. I saw enough from him in the preseason. I think that there's somebody that might take him because of the position.
And that's my concern too. So what I am hoping is, if there was an acquisition, you're right, there could be a cut down of a veteran player that Chiefs feel can come in and help them, because they are so dang young at this position. But if that happens, I just hope that it falls after Thursday-ish. That they can move it around enough to hold him for a bit and let the initial wave of waiver claims come through. He has a much better chance of making the practice squad if that happens. And I agree, he would probably be the guy that has to do that, because 6 has to be a guy that plays teams and is your break glass in case of emergency. Like, everybody else gets wiped out on the bus over to the stadium and somebody's got to play. Yeah. So for me, I'm just going to start because I know you're going to go off. For me, it's got to be Boodle, because I have to have competition that I can see both upside and can play teams. I know Boodle's not as good as the guy you're going to say, but I need defensive prowess that I can see him getting there from here. And he's the only guy left that has that for me.
I'm not arguing with you on that. I think he is the only guy that could probably step in and play defensive snaps and be somebody that could contribute at least a little bit. I'm not going to make that argument that the guy I think is going to make it is going to be that guy that can step in and play corner. It's just not reality. So to me, I think that they're looking at this from a special teams perspective and a special teams perspective only, and it's Chris Lamons. And he's been a core special teams guy for the Chiefs for the past couple of seasons, he was last season. And they were going to cut him, and then they decided they had to keep him because they thought somebody was going to take him. I guarantee you, well, I guess I shouldn't say guarantee, but I would just about guarantee you that he would get claimed this year. I just think that he would be a guy that somebody would go out and put a waiver wire claim in, because his legal issues are what they are, and it's probably not going to be anything that's going to happen until after this season. And of all the things, I just think that he is a core special teams guy. He was the number one. He was on the number 1 unit for the top 4 units. Buddha wasn't. So to me, that means that that's where they have him. And I would love to be able to look at that 6th cornerback position and say that you have a guy that can be a corner. That would be great. But I don't think that that's the way they build this roster.
I think you're crazy, but that's okay, because this conversation is actually happening right now in one Arrowhead Drive, back and forth between Dave Tobe and Steve Spagnuolo right now, because it is about those priorities. Can you give Dave what he needs, or do you have to hold back for potential need on the defensive side of the ball? I think it comes in also to the prowess of.
Here's the question I have, though, to you. Is Boodle a guy you think could make it to the practice squad?
I don't think so. I think
he was there all last year.
He was, but I think he's shown enough here that he's got enough fight in. There are a lot of teams that don't have 4 deep at corner.
Oh, I know. I agree
think could take a chance on him and bring him in. Yeah, that's my concern as well.
But I think those teams that you're talking about are the specific teams that I think would also be looking at a guy like Lamons, because they are not 4 deep, which means they don't have a 5th corner either. So they're going to want to get better at special teams, and that's usually with what your 5th corners for is special teams.
Yeah, it could be true. I think they have to take into account what they have at the other positions. Now, I don't think the 3rd running back is going to play special teams, but I think both Watson and Fountain will. And so you have maybe enough athleticism at linebacker that you feel like you can fill out a lot of the special teams without having the gunner have to come from the corner group. If it is Boodle that makes this and they go my way, I'm guessing it's because they feel that they have gunners specifically at other positions that they can make do with.
Yeah, and I do think that the 3rd running back could be a special teams guy. I've seen McKinnon play teams while on this roster, and Pacheco is going to be a teams guy because he's going to be the returner.
Yep.
I mean, you're going to have teams coming from that position, and you're going to probably have Sky Moore doing punt returns, if not more. And Brian Cook as your 3rd safety is going to be a core special teams guy as well. So, I mean, you're going to have teams filled out with back end of the positions. The only one that you're really not going to be having anybody come from is the QB position. They're not going to be playing special teams for anything. So
no, Chad Henne, just don't look at the field, okay?
But I don't think we've mentioned this, but I do love it. Did you see that they have Thornhill practicing as the backup holder?
Yes. Hey, and Reed can do his deal. I mean, I think he's shown that.
Exactly. So you could have the starting safety group as your kicker and holder for a game if something were to happen.
I mean,
a catastrophic something were to happen, but
we should probably talk. We'll come back tomorrow, folks, and we'll talk about what that doomsday scenario is in the post-apocalyptic world of the NFL. What does it mean for the kicking positions? Because I don't know. There's a future in this game that I think you might see change.
That's the bigger question I have. I was just going to say the bigger question I would have is who's the snapper? Because I know the only person that they've had do it is Kelsey, and that's a nightmare scenario for this team.
True. Yeah. I got to put my faith in Allegretti, and hopefully Caliendo. We'll see. I haven't seen those specific snaps out of those guys this season, so we'll see. But, folks, thank you for being here. I know live on a Sunday afternoon is pretty rare for us, but we're trying to mix in some of these things. So for those of you that are with us on YouTube and live, thank you very much. We appreciate it. If you would like sub and hit the bell for us, that would be great. Nice to see all of your faces and names in here. I know it's not a Q&A show, so we haven't gone through that. But if you're hearing this on audio after the fact, you can always watch live. You'll get notifications if you go get signed up and subscribe and hit that bell.
I do want to say really quick, it has been a rarity for us to go live on Sundays. I'm not going to say that that's going to necessarily be the case much longer, because I do think that we have some live shows coming probably right after the game would be my guess. So just be looking for that.
We are working on our post-game schedule for those of you who know the other channels that we're on as well. There's going to be a lot coming, so stay tuned. As we get ready for the regular season, we will let you know exactly when things are going to fall. I'm looking forward to it. Let us know what you think. What did you disagree with on our 53s? Do you think that we're crazy about the offensive line group or the corner group? Is Chris right? Does Chris Lamons make this roster? And I'm sorry, when I say Lamont, I think of a road race with race cars.
I get it.
But let us know your thoughts. Put them in the iTunes reviews. Put them in the Spotify reviews. Put them in the comments on YouTube. We'd like to hear more. We will have special breaking news if something crazy happens, like the Veach, doomsday trade scenario. You never know. I will say this again. That's the next shirt that I'll be producing at the gear store. What would Veach do? So WWVD, it's coming. Because you never know what's going to happen. And we will have more fallout as we start to see guys released here on Monday. So stay tuned. We'll have stuff for you all week long, as always. Thanks for watching us today, especially if you're here for the live. And we'll talk to you tomorrow.